Have you tried to manage anger but found it didn't work for you? Stay tuned. In this video, we cover 3 key insights from Not Getting Angry by Alubomulle Sumanasara, a leading figure in Sri Lanka's Buddhist community. Let's get started. Have you ever gotten angry and regretted it the next day? Maybe it happened at work, with your family, friends, or colleagues during a project. You couldn't stop the rage from taking over, and the next morning, you wake up thinking, what have I done? What did I say? You understand that your behavior wasn't good when you look back. And most of the time, when you reflect, you're in a very calm state of mind. You observe yourself objectively, not subjectively, when you're in a rage. You wish you could stay calm all the time, but it's not that easy, especially if you live your life for others. For me, this book isn't just something you read once and move on from. It's a book I return to every time I get angry or realize there's a tendency for me to get angry, especially in situations where I'm not feeling great physically, or if I'm sick, or having a bad day at work and can't behave nicely at home. That's when I open this book and remind myself about managing anger. I hope this summary gives you an overview of what this book is about. It would be great if you could apply this information to your life, work, or whatever you do. Let's start by defining anger. This is the definition from Wikipedia: an intense emotional state involving a strong, uncomfortable, and non-cooperative response to a perceived provocation, hurt, or threat. In Buddhism, they define it differently due to deep language differences. There are words, phrases, or expressions that can't be translated into other languages. Anger is one of those words that can't be simply translated into English in one word. There are actually 8 different kinds of anger. 1. Resentment. 2. Disregard. 3. Competition. 4. Jealousy. 5. Stinginess. 6. Rebelliousness. 7. Regret. 8. Rage. You might wonder why regret is categorized as anger, but you'll understand as we go through this. If you only identify anger as what is widely known as rage, you aren't managing anger correctly. Now that you understand there are different kinds of anger, how can you deal with it as a human being? This is generally the problem we all have. To make a long story short, you need to accept that you might not always be right. Let me break it down for you. The mindset of, I am right, is a major problem. What's wrong with being right? It's very important to be right in any circumstances at work, with family, or in friendships. But do you always think you're the smartest person in the room? If that belief turns the wrong way, that's when anger comes in. Let me give you an example. You are at work and want to delegate a task to your colleague. You've been in the office for 10 years and know everything well. Your colleague just joined a couple of months ago. You give them instructions and wait for the task to be done. The next day, your colleague submits the task, and it's done differently than you expected. The output wasn't what you wanted, so you may have to do it all over again. You get angry at your colleague and say, "Didn't you listen to me yesterday?" That's anger. You've been in the office for 10 years, so you should be right, and the guy who joined a few months ago is wrong. But you are not right. It doesn't make sense, right? Well, that's because you believe you're right, which causes this problem, and, in this context, the anger. What if you think you might be wrong? You might say, oh, maybe the message I delivered wasn't clear enough, or, I didn't explain why we do this task, where we're going with it, and the quality criteria. If you think you might be wrong, you can come up with many ideas to make the situation better for next time rather than getting angry at the current outcome. But it's hard if you're a professional in your field for many years. You have confidence based on your experience, knowledge, and the mistakes you've made and learned from. You're self-aware that you know this work very well, so if something happens, you have to accept that you might be wrong. That's not easy. How can you do that? It resonates with the statement, I am not always right. To put it simply, you have to accept that the world is incomplete, and humans are incomplete. No one is perfect. No one behaves perfectly, speaks perfectly, or writes perfectly. Human beings are imperfect by nature. If you understand this fully, just reading it, but truly accepting it, things will change. It comes down to very simple logical steps. If you have an ego that says, I'm right, then you become ignorant. That ignorance fuels the anger. The more you're ignorant, the more likely you are to get angry. This knowledge won't transform you overnight. It takes time to understand and accept this concept. By knowing this, you try it at home, at work, or whenever you face anger. Step by step, you'll get better at it, and yet, you might still get angry. But don't get angry about not being angry at all. Remember, human beings are not perfect. The last practical point is very hard but essential. Take notice of the anger and observe it objectively so that you can distance yourself from it. When you get angry, don't tolerate or suppress it. Instead, recognize the anger and observe yourself. Imagine zooming out from yourself and observing the angry you from a distance. There might be several ways to observe yourself objectively, but try not to suppress it. Simply understand the situation you're in. You might ask, how can I get good at observing myself objectively all the time? That's where meditation comes in. There are many books, videos, and resources about meditation. The basic concept of meditation is to observe yourself in the present moment. I'm not going to dive deep into meditation here, but if you're interested, you can find many resources online. I personally recommend authors who cover meditation for beginners based on the principles I've explained. Now, you understand anger itself, why it occurs, and how to deal with it not by managing it, but by observing it correctly. I want to close with some powerful words from the author. What I like about this book is not only its practicality, but also the author's interesting sense of humor about anger. One polite quote is, "Wisdom comes from a peaceful mind." But an aggressive, decisive quote from the author is, "Anger is total stupidity as a human being." And he continues, "Anger is the worst kind of behavior because even animals and bugs don't get angry. So you are below that. Consider anger as a strong toxin that will ruin you and those around you. Getting angry is like abandoning being human. Remember, when you get angry, you stop living as a wise human being." I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more updates. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.